Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to episode 3 of Young Justice, Welcome to Happy Harbor. We begin this episode at Star City on July 17th, where Speedy, with the help of Robin, Aqualad, and Kid Flash, take care of a criminal known as Brick, according to the credits. Besides helping Speedy, the trio are there hoping that Speedy will accept their offer to join them on the Young Justice team. But Speedy declines the offer, saying that he's done listening to the Justice League and he doesn't want to play their game. We then cut to July 18th, where Robin and Kid Flash arrive at Mount Justice thanks to Zeta Beam technology to meet up with the 3 other members of the Young Justice team. They're all wearing civilian clothes, and Robin is wearing a pair of sunglasses that cover about as much of his face as his mask would. They're all waiting for Red Tornado's arrival because they're hoping that he'll have a mission for them, because the Young Justice team hasn't had a mission yet after they've been formed. Red Tornado responds that it's Batman's responsibility to hand out the missions or give the missions, but the team members are impatient, and Red Tornado responds that they should take the time to get to know each other better, saying that social interaction helps to build teamwork. Since Miss Martian and Superboy live at Mount Justice, Miss Martian offers to give the initial trio of sidekicks a tour of Mount Justice. Superboy isn't very interested in playing tour guide, so it's just Miss Martian who gives the tour. And we get to hear some history about Mount Justice, how it was the secret headquarters of the Justice League in the during the Justice League's early years after their founding. And Superman and Green Lantern, Hal Jordan to be more specific, hollowed out the interior of the mountain so it could operate as a secret headquarters. The Justice League had to abandon Mount Justice when the secret was compromised, and they went to the Hall of Justice and the Watchtower as their secret headquarters afterwards. They also assure Miss Martian that none of them will have to worry about villains attacking Mount Justice because, as Kid Flash puts it, they're hiding in plain sight. Later on, Superboy smells something burning, and we find out that Miss Martian was baking cookies. She was trying to recreate a recipe. It sounds like it's from a TV show, but Miss Martian stops herself before saying too much else. But the rest of the team members appreciate that they think it was nice that Miss Martian was willing to offer them some cookies. And Kid Flash still likes the cookies even though they're burnt. Aqualad and Kid Flash also they reveal their civilian names, and they encourage Miss Martian to call them by that when they're off duty. And it's mentioned that Robin can't reveal his civilian name under Batman's orders. Miss Martian reveals her civilian name to be Megan Morse and encourages them to call her by the Earth name Megan. So that leaves Superboy as the only member of the Young Justice team who doesn't have a civilian name. And Miss Martian tries to assure him that they'll find one for him. And she happens to do this through telepathic communication, which angers Superboy, and much to her confusion. Aqualad kindly explains to her that while telepathic communication may be the norm on Mars, it's considered an invasion of privacy on Earth. And Miss Martian tries to make it up to everyone by showing her her vehicle, the bio ship, and offers to fly around Happy Harbor in it with them. And while they're riding in the bio ship, Aqualad explains he understands Yeah, Aqualad is talking to Superboy, explaining that he understands that Superboy realized he overreacted but doesn't know how to apologize to Miss Martian. And he tries to tell Superboy that a simple sorry will suffice. And to also keep things light, Robin and Kid Flash are interested. Or yeah, Robin and Kid Flash wonder if Miss Martian could show them some Martian abilities, and she obliges. Like her uncle, she is able to shapeshift, but unlike her uncle, she hasn't fully mastered the ability because she admits that she has a hard time perfectly imitating males because she ends up transforming into female versions of Robin and Kid Flash as a demonstration. She also explains that density shifting, the ability to phase through walls, is an ability she doesn't have yet because it's an advanced Martian ability. But she says that she and the bioship, for that matter, can use camouflage. It's not really invisibility. It's more like it blends in with the surroundings. But if Miss Martian or the bioship, for that matter, move around too much, then someone will see them. So that's why it's not actually invisibility. And Red Tornado contacts them to let them know that something's going on at the nearby power plant and wants them to covertly investigate. So that's what they do next. They see that the trouble is being caused by an android who bears a strong resemblance to Red Tornado, actually, except he's wearing a scarf rather than a cape, and he's voiced by John DeLancey. He reveals his name to be Mr. Twister, and he's causing trouble because he's trying to provoke the arrival of superheroes. And he finds the Unjustice team to be more of a nuisance than anything else. At one point, Miss Martian mistakes Mr. Twister as Red Tornado in disguise as part of a test that Red Tornado mentioned earlier, but that's not the case at all. Although Mr. Twister does find it amusing that they thought he was Red Tornado. Eventually, though, they're able to save themselves when Miss Martian, thanks to the camouflage ability on the bioship, Miss Martian is able to place it in camouflage mode above them. And she doesn't move it around at all. She keeps it stable. So Mr. Twister thinks they're gone, but he calls out to them that if they try to interfere again, he won't hesitate to finish them off. Superboy is angry at Miss Martian for thinking it was Red Tornado, but the others try to explain to Superboy that it was a rookie mistake because Miss Martian didn't have experience as a sidekick like the initial trio did, and even Superboy had some experience with the Cadmus incident. So some of the team members tell Miss Martian to hit the showers, as they put it, while they take care of Mr. Twister. So when Miss Martian tries to return to Mount Justice, she tells Red Tornado about Mr. Twister, and Red Tornado comments that it is interesting that Mr. Twister has the same abilities as him, and this gives Miss Martian an idea. So once again, the four other members of the Unjustice team are fighting Mr. Twister, and Miss Martian contacts them telepathically, and while she quickly explains that she knows that they don't like telepathic communication on Earth, she clarifies that this is an emergency because she has a plan. So soon enough, we see Red Tornado arrive, but the way he's flying is different than it was when we first saw him at the beginning of the episode. And Red Tornado fights Mr. Twister. Eventually, Mr. Twister seems to have defeated Red Tornado and is trying to reprogram him. But then he finds out that Red Tornado is not really Red Tornado. In truth, Red Tornado was actually Miss Martian using her shape-shifting abilities, and Kid Flash was imitating Red Tornado's abilities or powers to keep up with the Rouge. So they're able to get the drop on Mr. Twister and defeat him. And it turns out he's a robot being piloted by a human. And then Miss Martian crushes the human with a rock. But then we find out that the human is not really a human. He's a robot, actually. So a robot piloting a robot. And Miss Martian explains that this is why she couldn't read his mind earlier, and what led to the original confusion about thinking that Mr. Twister was Red Tornado originally. So Kid Flash takes the robot eyeball that was broken off from the rest of the robot when it was smashed and decided to keep it as a souvenir. The other eye of the robot, though, is still functioning, and it's a camera. We see that the human that the robot piloting Mr. Twister resembles was watching this. His name is revealed to be Brom Stick, and he's the assistant for a scientist named Tio Morrow, according to the credits. And Tio Morrow is voiced by Jeff Bennett, like Red Tornado. Tio Morrow takes the defeat in stride, saying that you can learn something even in failure, and they now know that Red Tornado is in the general vicinity. So back at Mount Justice, the rest of the robot's remains are brought before Red Tornado, who examines them and says that it does seem like Mr. Twister was after him in particular. They wonder if that's the reason why he didn't step in to help, but he says in reality he doesn't think it's his place to fight the Young Justice team's battles, just as he doesn't expect them to fight his battles. And while Robin thinks that this is a bit harsh, commenting how their mentors would step in, Red Tornado is still pretty adamant about letting them solve their own problems. And we end the episode with Superboy apologizing to Miss Martian for his overreaction, and Miss Martian graciously accepts the apology. Now, Greg Weisman had mentioned in the past that episodes 3 through 8 were sort of spotlight episodes for the members of the Young Justice team, or they would each give special attention to one particular member of the team, and in this case, it would be Miss Martian. While she first appeared in Fireworks, this is where she had a significant amount of screen time, so we got to have a better understanding of Miss Martian's character. And we also saw that while she doesn't have the experience of being a sidekick like the original or the initial trio of sidekicks had, she still showed her abilities, and it was her plan at the end that they were able to pull off to defeat Mr. Twister. Speaking of Mr. Twister, he's a villain I'm not too familiar with, I admit, but from what I read up on him, he was apparently a pretty easy villain to deal with in the main comics, but here he had a much more impressive showing, and the similarity to Red Tornado also hints at something important, and that's another thing I liked about Young Justice. Like I mentioned in the first 2 episodes, Young Justice has a good way of planting seeds for future events in the future, and yeah, we're going to come back to Tio Morrow in the future, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Otherwise, it was nice to hear a little history about Mount Justice for many of the viewers, and as far as the secret, or what led to the secret of Mount Justice being compromised, that actually is covered in the tie-in comics. That's right, when Young Justice was airing on TV, there was also some tie-in comic books to fill in the blanks in between the episodes because, well, these episodes are roughly a half hour, so you only have so much time to fit so much content within that time frame. And that is something I really liked. I liked how Young Justice took advantage of other forms of other medium forms. Like, even though it was mainly a TV show, they still took advantage of other medium forms to cover stories that they wouldn't have been able to cover within their episode count, like the tie-in comics. And there was a video game too, Young Justice Legacy. So that was something I really appreciated, having all of those different forms of medium forms to make the universe feel more, well, alive. So I really appreciated that. And I'm considering covering recap and thoughts for the tie-in comics as well. I'm thinking about doing that. And let's see. Otherwise, I did like how the crossing of wires regarding the telepathic communication, how Miss Martian didn't know about the implications because of her own culture. That's a nice thing because it's reflective of real life, where different cultures are going to have different norms or different rules of etiquette, like what's considered appropriate or inappropriate in one culture may differ from another culture. And that's something important, to be mindful of other people's cultures, but also to recognize that some people may not mean ill will. Because while Superboy's reaction was very understandable, he did admittedly overreact because Miss Martian wasn't trying to be malicious. It was an innocent accident on her part. And I did like how Aqualad recognized that, and he was much more kind about explaining this to Miss Martian. And he also was kind to Superboy as well, explaining that he understood that Superboy actually realized that he overreacted, but he struggles with knowing how he should apologize. And that's something that I think many can relate to. I've known situations where people realize that they overreacted, but they don't know how to go about apologizing, or they struggle with that. And I think that's that was important that they covered that. And by the end of the episode, Superboy was willing to acknowledge he overreacted and apologized for it. And Miss Martian did accept that, as Aqualad had figured. So that's a nice touch. So that's what I liked about this episode. They haven't started their first official mission as the Young Justice team, but they're still kind of laying out the foundation. Like, as Red Tornado said, social interaction helps to build teamwork. So this is definitely a good practice for them before their first official mission starts, which actually will be the next episode. So that'll be something to look forward to. And there you go. We've now discussed episode 3 of Young Justice on this channel. Take care, and until next time.